Here we go. Jake and Josh are here to analyze the game they love for the team they love. This is another Dolphins podcast. Here's your host, Jake Mendel and Josh Houtz.
For the first time since 1966, 70 points have been scored in an NFL football game. And let me be the first to welcome you to Victory Monday. Thank you so much for turning into the Jake and Josh show. This is another Dolphins podcast. I wish I had something else to say, but my God, Josh, the Dolphins, first quarter, 14 points, second quarter, 21 points, and then they just brought it back, another 35 points in the second half, a 70-20 win over the Denver Broncos. Man, there's not much more I can say. Oh my God, what a game.
Yeah, man, what a game. I think we all need a cigarette after that one. I mean, coming into this, we felt confident. You know, some people were calling it a trap game, but to think that we were going to score 70 points and win by 50, like I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, the Dolphins are up 50 points. When have we ever been able to say that? I think you touched on it. They were, 3 points shy of breaking the record for most points ever scored in a game. Mike McDaniel decided to kneel the ball instead of kick that field goal. Maybe he didn't trust Jason Sanders, but dude, 70 freaking points. What a day. And we were coming on here anyway for our Victory Monday, our recap pod, but this was the perfect day, man. It just feels so good to be a Dolphins fan, and we're 3-0, baby. So not a lot to say, but we both need cigarettes after that one.
1940, the Chicago Bears scored 73 points against Washington. 1966, Washington scored 72 points on the Giants. And now 2023, the Miami Dolphins scored 70 points against the Denver Broncos. And Josh, let's just start right at the end, because the Dolphins did have that opportunity to kick a field goal at the end of the game. But Mike McDaniel said, I think, had the best answer. He basically said that, hey, we aren't here to break records like that. If we were to break a record like that, it'd be in a game that matters. And most importantly, Josh, he wanted karma to remain on Miami's side. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't college football, right? You don't get moved up the rankings by beating a team by 50 points or more than that or whatever it might be. So they really didn't have anything to go out there, any reason to go out there, kick that field goal. So kudos to Mike McDaniel. I was kind of thinking about it. I used to be in Madden leagues, and there were different things that you could do, shouldn't do because of sportsmanship, and running up the score is one of those. And that's all I could think about with him going out there and kneeling that ball with the record in sight. But dude, just what a great game from the offense. And just to think, I think they were pretty close to having the most yards in a single game, if I'm not mistaken. I think they were 7 yards shy of that. So what a spectacular day, man. And that offense was just firing on all cylinders in the passing game and the running game.
Miami's offense, Josh, was on a whole new level on Sunday. Let me go through these possessions. The Denver Broncos decided it was a smart idea. Hey, we're going to kick the ball off to this Dolphins offense speed in the game. Well, the Dolphins went 75 yards in 3 plays, Josh. That was capped off by a 54-yard touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill. The next drive was another touchdown, followed by another touchdown. Downs, touchdown, end of half, touchdown, punt, touchdown, downs. Josh, there's so many plays we can talk about here in so many different directions. Let's start early. I know there's a touchdown late you really want to talk about here, and I promise you we will get to it. But let's start that first possession, Josh. The Dolphins came out and flat out punched the Denver Broncos in the face, and it was Tua to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill finished the game with 9 receptions for 157 yards and a touchdown, long of 54. He could have had another crazy touchdown where his knee just hit the ground. But man, early on, this was the bread and butter. It was, hey, we have Tua, we have Tyreek, come try to beat us.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what was really stood out in that 54-yard touchdown reception was how wide open he was. I mean, and how much time Tua had.
You know why he was?
Because he's Tyreek Hill.
Do you know why?
Everyone was doubling my boy Chosen, right? They bid on Chosen underneath. But yeah, man. So they started with the Raheem Mostert. I think he got 7 yards on first, and Smythe had a nice chunk, and then just came out 54-yarder wide open to Tyreek Hill, and that kind of just set the stage for how this day was going to go, right? We thought Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill were going to be, I guess, the stars of this, and not to say they weren't, but it was the run game that started to, just score at will. But Tua Tagovailoa, man, was damn near perfect for most of this game. I think he had 16 or 17 completions in a row, and it was right after they showed the stat that he was right behind Tannehill where he threw the incompletion. So couldn't really ask for a better game again offensively. But you're right, man. It started as soon as the Dolphins got the ball. They went down there and scored and set the stage for how this day was going to go.
Before the game, Josh, I'm not going to be that guy because I never expected the Dolphins to win by 50 points. But we kind of had the feeling that Miami might come out and want to put on a show, right? Tyreek Hill had that quote of like, you guys go to see Lil Wayne, you guys go to see Drake. You guys should be coming to see the Miami Dolphins. And that's why I kind of knew he'd be one of the first players to score a touchdown for this Dolphins team. But Josh, we pod so much where it's so easy for us to kind of pull out a pod and say, maybe we should just shut up. Once in a while, you know what? We talk a lot about this team. Maybe we should shut up because we went on a rant. I will take most of the blame for this about how the Dolphins might need another running back. You mentioned the injuries to Jeff Wilson, Chris Brooks. You don't know if you can trust him to be a consistent backup. Salvon Ahmed, he misses the game. In the first quarter, Josh, the Dolphins wasted no time going to Achane. Not only did the rookie running back lead the Dolphins with 203 yards on 18 carries, but he dashed in another 4 receptions for 30 yards and another 2 touchdowns. Were you surprised to see him involved so early on and, quite frankly, so often?
I think the last part for sure, so often, right? I mean, we kind of knew that he was going to be that next guy up behind Raheem Mostert. We knew the Dolphins were going to want to run the ball effectively, but dude, 18 carries, 203 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Those 2 touchdown
Madden.
receptions, which I mean, those play designs were just that first one where Tua no look shoveled with his right hand as Tyreek was coming around to fake it. I mean, dude, Mike McDaniel is an absolute mastermind, but you don't have to sit here and take the credit for that. I mean, that was a homework assignment you gave us, and I was trying to get the Jonathan Taylor talk out there, but I'm going to put that to rest right now. For as nice as a Jonathan Taylor would look, for as nice as one of these other backs would look, I don't think the Dolphins should, even think about it at this point. Achane looked like an absolute stud. Raheem Mostert, I think he's probably leading the league in touchdowns right now, right? He was tied with 3. He had added 4 more in this game, 3 on the ground. I mean, hey, he's playing out of his mind. So I don't think the Dolphins need to worry about going out there and, trading for a Jonathan Taylor like we may have thought before. But, man, Achane looked explosive. Raheem Mostert looked explosive. And it was so cool to see. I believe NFL put up like next-gen stats, the fastest ball carries of the year, and all 5 of those were Dolphins. I think 3 were Tyreek Hill, 1 was Mostert, and 1 was Achane. It's like, we really do have a video game offense. And I mean, Mike McDaniel, we joked about before, has his mom's credit card, and he's building this Madden Ultimate Team where he's just using those crossers and speed to, gash defenses. It's beautiful. We love to see it. And today, the run game, man, really, really stepped up.
Bro, McDaniel's praying for the day that credit card statement never comes in. He's just hoping that bill must be so insane. The most yards in a game in NFL history, 1951. The Rams, Josh, had 735 against one of your favorite teams there, the Yanks. You can't forget about the Yanks. And then in 2023, it was the Dolphins with 726 yards against the Denver Broncos. And Josh, believe it or not, the Dolphins selected a very explosive wide receiver in the first round of the 2021 NFL draft. He was inactive for the game. He was jumping up and down on the sidelines. They actually got some film of him after the game yelling his coined fins for the win, which I absolutely love. But looking at this chart, man, looking at this offense, we kind of felt, all right, Jaylen Waddle, he's good for 5 to 10 targets, and all of a sudden those are gone. Tua's going to be the blackjack dealer. He's going to spread those around. We'll see some River Craycraft. He actually left the game with an injury. It was a shoulder. We don't know the severity of that just yet. Braxton Berrios, he'll get a couple of receptions. Even Durham Smythe. But man, Durham Smythe was targeted once. River Craycraft injured, but he was also targeted once. Braxton Berrios was targeted twice. So what was your reaction to see how this offense was just marching up and down the field, knowing that these 3 key pieces combined for 4 total targets, and the offense, Josh, scored 70 points? 70.
Yeah, but what world are we honestly living in? You mentioned it. Jaylen Waddle's not in this game. You mentioned the different targets. I mean, they were running the ball effectively. They were doing things with their running backs that they didn't have to get some of these playmakers involved in the passing game like we thought we might see. But I don't know, man. Maybe that's why they didn't try to go out there and break the record for points, because Mike McDaniel knows they're going to be back here again, right? Up and down the entire thing. And we do have to give a shout out to Teron Armstead, because I don't know if that run game would have been as good if he wasn't out there. I did get a little bit queasy when I saw Liam Eichenberg out there taking snaps later in the game because Connor Williams was out. I don't know. Did he ever come back in? I'm not sure if Eichenberg finished the game or if it was Williams came back. But, dude, that offensive line's been playing out of their mind. This entire offense is out of their mind. And it feels good to be a Dolphin fan, man.
Yeah, it was a stretch run out to the left side, I think it was, where Connor Williams, he was out in open space, and he kind of just, fell over. I hope it wasn't a contact injury and more of maybe he felt something tighten up and, all right, I'm just going to roll over. I'm not really in the play too much. We'll hear more about that injury as we go, but That's another thing worth mentioning, man, too. Like, you don't put up 70 points if you have snapping issues, right? Is that safe to say that you ain't fumbling any snaps if you're putting up a 70 bagger?
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe to say.
It was just an overall, just such a well-rounded performance, and it started with the rushing attack. The Dolphins had 6 drives in the first half. They scored touchdowns on 5 of them. They had the most rushing yards in a half since 2018, and the third most points in regular season history. Josh, the Dolphins ran the ball 43 times, 350 yards on the ground. Take that, Austin Eckler and the Chargers. You know nothing about running the football when you look at numbers like that. Were the Dolphins going to run the ball this much if Teron Armstead was inactive? I mean, I think when we look back to last year, I mean, the bread and butter was that toss run behind Armstead to the left side, and it seemed like this, rushing attack really just picked up where it left off. 5 touchdowns, 8.1 yards per carry.
Yeah, man, I'm not sure if Teron Armstead was out, but it was working effectively. And I think you mentioned on the last pod, you were like, yo, Josh, do you think this means that Mike McDaniel's, finally committed to the run? We're finally over that. I think we can now say we're over that, right? 43 carries, 300 plus yards on the ground. It's just insane, man, that this is how well this offense looked out there. And to just think that, they don't have some of their pieces, like you mentioned, man. I mean, this team has room to even get better. And to think about that, to think about, what the potential from here on. I mean, Salvin Ahmed looked great this year as a running back. Now we got him adding him to Achane, who looks like a stud. Raheem Mostert playing out of his mind. Jeff Wilson's going to get healthy again. I mean, it's a good problem to have.
We're going to have to give flowers to the defense at some point, but I do have a couple more comments about the offense, Josh. We have to talk about them. Robbie Chosen, 1 reception on 1 target, 68 yards, and a touchdown. Before we get to the actual reception, man, how do you feel about how the offense used someone like Robbie Chosen? We mentioned this before. He's not that Jaylen Waddle possession guy who's going to help you move the sticks. But what does he do? He gives you a distraction all the way down the field, someone who everyone's going to focus on. We mentioned it earlier that on that Tyreek Hill massive run that for some reason Robbie Chosen was double covered. We saw the vision and how he can really impact this offense, I felt.
Yeah, he's not Jaylen Waddle, but in a sense, he can still be that decoy similar to Jaylen Waddle. Use that speed to scare defenses, and you mentioned it. We saw it on that early touchdown. We saw it on that big play, right? I mean, I could not. I was sitting there, I think, probably getting the kids something to eat or whatever it was, and I look up and I'm like, "There's no way." Robbie Cho, he was like on the ground, like praying, and I'm like, "No way, man! He just scored a touchdown. Are you serious? This is awesome." So, I like the way they sprinkled him in. Obviously, again, he brings a different dynamic than what we expect from Braxton Berrios or even a River Craycraft. So, to see him get involved a little bit here, I love to see it, and I hope that they can sprinkle him in a little bit more. But you look at this receiving corps, and this was without Eric Ezukoma, which I do think that was a little bit of a surprise, right? Them going with Robbie Chosen over Eric Ezukoma. I mean, that surprised me a little bit, especially when I think we were on here talking about how we might see Ezukoma get some of those carries in this game. So yeah, man, like to see it. Love to see Robbie Chosen out there and hope to see more of him. But if we don't need him, I'm okay with that too.
Can I get your thoughts on Ezukama real quick? Because I think that was very interesting. That was the eyebrow before the game. He was inactive. If he was active, whose toes does he step on in terms of targets? Does that mean Devon Achane, oh no, he wouldn't get targeted or have 22 touches in the game? Or where would the game plan overlap where you don't necessarily feel that Ezukama would be involved?
Yeah, I can't say for sure, but that's kind of what my first thing was. I was thinking about Achane and the way, maybe they knew that he was going to be out there. He was going to get involved in some of those, end arounds, those different opportunities in the passing game as well. So maybe they thought, okay, let's give Robbie Chosen a chance. I don't know if Eric Ezukoma had any injuries peak up throughout the week. I think he was pretty relatively healthy, correct? So it might have been a healthy scratch, but yeah, I immediately thought maybe it would cut into Devon Achane's a little bit. But if the running game's moving as well as it did, I mean, we talked about Jake. All it takes is Devon Achane breaking off that one big play to keep getting touches, and that's exactly what we saw here. I mean, the dude went psycho, and it was awesome to see. So yeah, man, I think that he'd probably dip into Achane's a little bit, but you got to get Achane out there in the field more now too, right?
What a tough question. What a great question to have, though, wondering how are you going to get all these playmakers out in the field at the same time? And we have to mention it one more time, Josh, before we move on. 3 games, the Chargers, solid pass rush. The Patriots defense, we know how good they are. And then the Denver Broncos, who you gave up 70 points. You're not a good defense. There's no sugar coating it. There's no way around it, but they do have some pieces. I mean, Pat Surtain II is one of the best cornerbacks in the league, and he was still stuck just chasing around guys all day. He had no idea what was going on. I mean, this offensive line deserves its flowers. 8.1 yards per carry on the ground. Tua stayed clean. Mike White was even clean when he was in there. That has to be the biggest surprise about this 3-0 start to begin the year.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're nitpicking, and I don't want to be that guy because I mean
Do it.
we won by 50 points, but what the hell was that? Why did they go for it on fourth down? That their back was against like their 35-yard line, and for whatever reason, 4th and 1, I think I'd written down. They ended up stopping them. The defense stepped up and forced a punt, so I guess it wasn't that big of a deal. But I'm just sitting there like, why are you doing that? You have this game in control. Punt the damn ball, man. Don't get too cute when you have your back against the um, well, on your own side of the field. So that was my only gripe, but I mean, who cares, right? They won by 50 points.
You know why they just didn't trust Sanders to kick it from their own 35. That's the only, otherwise they would have had him out there kicking the field goal. Yeah, that was probably the one question, and it is a genuine question worth having. But they were moving the ball so well. It was more the play calling I didn't like. Yes, I love to get the ball in Alec Ingles' hand, but the fullback dive up the middle, especially, that was when Tua is still perfect on the day. He might have been like 13 for 13 at the time. Just to run it up the middle twice, that seemed like a very Joe Philbin level move. I like the idea to go for it. I like the idea to even get Alec Ingold in twice, but it's fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, something like that. I think that sounds right. Right.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I don't know what they were thinking there, but again, it really doesn't matter. It worked out in the Dolphins' favor. They ended up stopping the defense, who took the ball over. They were already in field goal range, ended up getting out of there with 0 points. So, awesome performance overall. But yeah, why was Ingold getting those touches when Raheem Mostert and Achane, they were moving the ball effectively?
Even Chris Brooks had a couple carries too. He finished the day with 9 carries for 66 yards and a touchdown. I think that is it for offense, Josh. Are we missing it? Oh, 2 no-look passes. I mean, at some point when you're up 30 points in a game and you're just throwing stuff out there, man. I mean, there can be a debate probably not anymore, but there was a debate to be had about is Tua worth that next contract? But I think there's one thing that we can safely say. I think he was worth the 5th overall pick in the 2020 NFL draft. At this point, we can say the Dolphins in 5 years, things can change. But as of right now, 3 years in the future, 4 years in the future, I'd say the 5th pick in the 2020 NFL draft. I think that was a good selection, selecting Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, man. I think he's 24-13 now as a starter. He's been just putting up psycho numbers, and it's just nice to see him in an offense with a head coach that believes in him and trusts him, and all these weapons they put around him. And now the offensive line's stepping up. I mean, there were times, man, where he just seemed like he had all day to throw, and it was an anomaly. I wasn't used to it. I didn't know what was going to happen. Thought the game was just going to black out, and it was going to say you were disconnected from your opponent or something.
Looking at the Miami Dolphins defense, Josh, obviously the defense didn't put up 70 points, but they did have a massive input in the outcome of this game. Let's start with Courtland Sutton, Josh. On the surface, 8 receptions, 91 yards, and a touchdown on 11 targets. He fumbled the ball twice to give the Dolphins the ball in prime field position. You mentioned Madden, man. This kind of felt like you're playing on rookie, and any chance you get the opportunity to hit stick someone, it's an instant fumble. It kind of seemed like Courtland Sutton had that going on for him.
Yeah, and you gotta give credit to Courtland Sutton because you could see that he was a dominant receiver out there, right? The way he was making plays, he did do some good things, but you had to laugh because there was one where I think he beat Javon Holland, got away from him, and Javon Holland still came up and just knocked that thing out like he was, again, like you mentioned, playing on rookie and Madden. So everything was working for the Dolphins. Javon Holland was all over the place, making tackles, knocking the ball out if the ball was caught, and it was just overall great performance. Vic Fangio is up there smiling down, right? So happy for what he just did because, again, he wanted this a little bit more than some of these other games, and the defense definitely showed up today. And now they're starting to build these, good performances on top of each other. And when you add that to an offense that could put up 70 points, Jake, I mean, holy crap, man.
Last week we spoke a bit about how, Javon Holland led the team with 10 tackles, and he led the team again, this time with 8 tackles. We were a little worried, like, is this sustainable, having your safety lead the team in tackles? Things are always going to feel different when you win by 50, but it kind of felt like that Javon Holland was always in the action, but he wasn't overextended as we might have felt at times last week where he had to do a little bit of everything. It felt like he was in his comfort zone. He knocked away a pass, the 8 tackles, and then the forced fumble. I mean, he's given his opportunities, and I think that's so important, without really forcing him to be that guy. I need to be involved with, 14, 15, 16 plays in a game.
Yeah, man. Again, he's all over the field. You can tell that he's going to be, one of those dynamic safeties to come. I think Ryan Clark tweeted out that he's going to be the best safety in football sooner than later. You had to give Deshaun Elliott props too. I mean, he's all over the field as well. It looks like he had 5 total tackles, 2 pass breakups. One was a huge stop. I think it was on a third down. So he's out there playing with his hair on fire. And I liked what Cater Kohu did. I think he played more on the outside today because of
Huge.
Eli Apple's struggles. Was a little bit uncertain or confused by why Cam Smith wasn't active. We were all hoping to see him get more reps this week. So he wasn't out there. They used Cater a little bit more on the outside. And every week you can continue to see what type of impact he has, getting down, making the open field tackles, pass breakups, always in on plays. Great effort. And again, man, I'm just giddy. It's we're sitting here fanboying, but that's what we're going to do after a game when you win by 50 points, right? Fanboying over every aspect. I would have liked to see a little bit more out of the pass rush, though. I wanted to see Jalen Phillips get, one, maybe Bradley Chubb knock a ball out or get a sack or two. Still want to see more than, almost those pressures and things like that. But again, that's nitpicking.
Russell Wilson was hit 12 times, and it felt like the defense was just missing that slightly extra gear needed to hit him before the ball was thrown. Just to give the Dolphins offense flowers again, Tua was hit once. Tua was hit once compared to Russell Wilson being hit 12 times. Something I thought was interesting was the idea that Jalen Phillips, he tweaked his back late last week, and the Dolphins are kind of working him in. He only had one tackle on the day, but Bradley Chubb was involved. And then also Andrew Van Ginkel was involved for the second straight week. The interesting, though, when you see someone like Andrew Van Ginkel get involved with 3 tackles and a tackle for a loss, a quarterback hit, you wonder, okay, does that mean David Long wasn't on the field? But no, Josh, that wasn't even the case either. He had 8 tackles to tie Javon Holland for the team lead. So how'd you feel about that front 7 on how it kind of existed? I guess I should put it simply there.
I mean, I enjoyed it, right? We even saw Agba get involved a bit. I think he had an interception. Raekwon Davis, I don't know if he got a hand
Deshaun
on it.
Hand actually handed
Oh,
it.
was it Deshaun Hand? Okay, because it looked like it was Raekwon Davis' head anyway. So Deshaun Hand, maybe Raekwon's head. Either way, it ended up in Agba's hands. Agba then got a sack, I think, later in the game. So to see him step up when get called upon, to see some of those other pieces, like I mentioned, Raekwon Davis, was a little bit concerned about Christian Wilkins there for a little bit. He went into the locker room. No one was really sure what was going on there. I think Denver then started to move the ball pretty effectively when he was out of the game, as you would expect. But I do think maybe they baby Jalen Phillips a little bit more in this one. And when you're up by so much, right? I mean, you can use some of these different pieces you have and give some of these other guys rest. So overall, again, liked what I saw, but I just don't know if you can put too much stock into a game like this, right? Because are the Broncos, I mean, they're 0-3 now. I mean, we can sit here and say that they might be a bad team, and this is what
They
you
might,
hope to.
maybe.
Yeah, this is what you hope to do to bad teams. But man, 50 points. I mean, no matter how you try to spin it or sugarcoat it, that's an ass whooping, man.
And to, like, you expect your playmakers to make plays, right? Whether it was, you'd hope Javon Holland forces a fumble, but somebody who steps up, especially in a game like this, a 4-month season, man, you need the random guys to have huge games. And how about Justin Bethel stepping up again? 3 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss. I mean, that number 20, you didn't expect to see it too much, but it was flying around each side of the field. It didn't matter where he was lined up. He found a way to make an impact against the Broncos, and this Broncos offense that really, Josh, couldn't do too much. Rushing attack averaging 3.5 yards per carry on the ground. It was pretty nice to see just that entire defense work as one and just kind of keep the Broncos contained more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard about this being a bend don't break type defense, right? And there were times when you're sitting here and you're watching them drive where the defense did step up in those key moments. We mentioned how when the Dolphins had that turnover on downs early in the game in their own side of the field, the defense stepped up and they were making plays when called upon. So again, perfect team effort in this one. I mean, we could sit here and you can, I guess, get down to schematics, but I'm glad that you brought up Justin Bethel because you definitely saw him out there flashing, and those are the type of guys that can be difference makers in some of these games. But yeah, man, we just need to. I continue to think we're winning games 50 points, and we're gonna have Jalen Ramsey back at some point this year, right?
What a nice added bonus to that, too. I mean, just knowing that you have that coming back. Speaking about the secondary, just a little bit longer. I mean, Xavier Howard gave up a touchdown there in the back corner. I wouldn't necessarily say he had a bad game, but we're getting to the point he had the interception against Mac Jones, Josh. But I'm kind of starting to feel like we want to see a little more from Xavier Howard. Yes, no doubting his career, how awesome he's been. But looking at his contract and his role on the field, especially with Jalen Ramsey being out, you kind of hope he'd do a little bit more and have maybe a 1 or 2 more stamp plays where he can really dictate the momentum.
Yeah, maybe that's all going to come, right? I mean, we're still early in the season, but you really can't fault him on that touchdown, like you mentioned. I mean, Russ extended that play, and he just couldn't cover Cortland Sutton long enough. But good job by them to kind of adapt and to end up scoring there. But yeah, man, you wanted to hope he would step up and be that X corner that can just shut down and shadow a guy and completely erase him from the game. We thought he might do that with Cortland Sutton in this one, and that really wasn't the case. So, yeah, I think what you're trying to say in a nice way is X's better days may be behind him, and maybe his days as a Dolphin are behind him. But we don't want to talk about that right now because we talked about that before on the podcast. So I have to be consistent. But yeah, man, we want to see a little bit more from X, right?
Just looking through this defensive stat sheet to see who really stands out here. Hey, how about Jerome Baker? Jerome Baker, 2 quarterback hits. He had a nice tackle for a loss against the run. I mean, you could just go through this entire team, and that's how you get to 3-0, right? The Dolphins, it was the offense in week 1. Everything kind of cleaned itself up in week 2. And in week 3, we saw what this potential can be when you're facing, obviously, a team that's not up to your level. And this is a pretty nice message to send, Josh, right before the Denver Broncos come to town. Or, well, I guess you traveled to Buffalo. Potato, potato.
Potato, potato. We know what you meant. We're going up to Orchard Park where it smells like urine. But it was nice to see Jerome Baker step up. And I've been pretty hard on these linebackers. Him and David Long both had very good games, like you mentioned. They did have a tackle for loss, and I think it was like a 3rd and 1 or a 3rd and 3 that completely stopped a drive that looked promising for the Broncos. So it's nice to see some of these guys that are getting paid, solid money that we might have been disappointed in heading into this week and seeing them flash on the screen and make plays when the Dolphins needed them to. So man, you got to feel pretty damn good if you're Mike McDaniel, right? Your first 2 years in the NFL, you start 3-0. I believe both years, and this one, man, 50 points. I'm not gonna get over that. I mean, no one can tell us anything all week, dude. Our team just won by 50 points, scored 70.
You can't talk to me. We have scored 50 points. I like that. That should be like a Twitter bio or something. Don't talk to me unless your team has scored 70 points. Josh, do you have any closing thoughts here as we wrap up week 3 of the NFL season? We saw the Buffalo Bills pick up a win. The New England Patriots picked up their first one of the season, beating the Jets. But man, looking at this division, the Buffalo Bills have scored 91 points through 3 games. The Miami Dolphins, though, 130. That doesn't look too bad.
No, not at all. And you wonder what's going to give, right? I mean, these first 3 weeks feel great. We're on cloud 9, but playing Buffalo, that's the team we want to beat, right? That's the team that you want to assert your dominance and be this team. The running game, be effective, go through the air and have your way with Buffalo. That's a team that has been an Achilles heel on our side, and they've run away with the AFCs for so many years. So this is a heavyweight battle, 3-0 against the Bills. I want to see us take care of business there, but dude. It just feels so good. So my closing thoughts are the Dolphins seem to just be getting better, Jake. I mean, how is that possible? We came into this week feeling confident, feeling pretty good, but I didn't expect to come out of this feeling this good, right? I mean, the offense was just clicking on all cylinders, and now that you have a run game to add to the passing game, those 2 speedy backs that are just race cars. I mean, what do you do if you're a defense? I don't know. And now the defense is stepping up. Is that my take? Is that a good overall take of everything? I'm just really happy.
There's just so many different pieces moving in the same direction at the same time. And Mike McDaniel had a great quote. He came out and said, "Shame on us if you put a ceiling on what you're capable of. It's amazing what a group of people can do going in one direction. The points don't carry over, but I think this is a meaningful game for a lot of guys." Josh, the home opener is so important to come out and just really show what the ceiling is. Mike McDaniel just said that, right? He doesn't want to put a ceiling on this team. And there's always a little extra motivation when you have someone like Sean Payton saying, "Oh no, Tua's going to get benched for Teddy Bridgewater." You have the Denver Broncos choosing to fire Vic Fangio. They cut River Craycraft. They traded Bradley Chubb. And, it just seemed like this wasn't really a revenge game. And then you sprinkle in Mike McDaniel as a ball boy for the Broncos. But I do think all these players wanted to remind this franchise of the different people who stepped through those doors at one point or another.
Yeah, and I think, they've continuously talked about how important the sports were to the South Florida fan base, right? And the fans, going through the Florida Panthers championship, the Heat's championship run this year, and how they want to mimic that. So they were going out there in front of their fans. It was a revenge game, home opener. They wanted to, go out there and show the world what they were capable of. But again, I don't think in any of our wildest dreams we woke up this morning thinking the Dolphins were going to break the franchise record in scoring, nearly break the NFL record in points and yards and all that stuff. But I guess we just got to get used to that, man. That's just who this Miami Dolphins team is, and it feels good, dude. It feels so damn good.
You mentioned mimicking the Heat's run. Do you remember who they played in the finals there?
It was Denver, right?
Little cut,
Okay.
little
That's the one
payback
thing I
action,
remember.
right?
That's the one thing I remembered. Yeah, so they got the
People don't
revenge, man.
forget.
No, never forget. And Spo was there, wasn't he? Didn't they show him up there in the box with his kids
Oh,
watching
was
that?
he?
Yeah, he was. So it was pretty fitting. So yeah,
Oh,
man.
that's so cool.
And imagine all those fans, man. It had to feel so good to be there and to witness this. This kind of felt like that. I don't want to say the Wildcat game when New England had no answer for it, but it did seem like Denver had no answer for the Dolphins today, none whatsoever.
Dude, when I had Dustin on earlier, or at near the end of the week, he was talking about how he's like a season ticket holder and him and his family go to the game. They were talking about like, oh, I'm gonna have like this a nice bottle of bourbon and like some lobster before the game. And I just the whole time I'm like, dude, why do we live in the Northeast, man? Could you imagine sipping some bourbon, eating some lobster? Oh, by the way, your team's about to put a 70 burger up at Denver Broncos. We are doing this so wrong, so wrong.
Yeah, I don't think we do it too bad, Jake. I mean, you had your apple cider mimosas this morning, right? And I was drinking water and pumpkin coffee. That's comparable to that bourbon, right?
Dude, the apple cider mimosas, man, starting the day, went out to breakfast 8:30 this morning. I woke up at 8:17, out to breakfast by 8:30. They lined the inside of the I don't know if this is just a Northeast thing, but everybody up here loves mason jars. It's a real hipster thing. They just line the inside of it with caramel, and then it's just apple cider mimosa. Yeah, mimosa, also known as champagne, and then just some vodka in just for like a little added measure, man. It was
Amazing.
fire. It was beautiful, man.
That was that you should have known from there the Dolphins were gonna score 70 points. As soon as they came out and this thing was encrusted with caramel on the inside, you should be like Dolphins by 50.
I'm putting up 70 points on breakfast. It's over either way. That is it. Thank you all so much for listening to another Dolphins podcast. We hope you are enjoying your Victory Monday. We will be back throughout the week as we digest this win and prepare for an AFC battle against the Buffalo Bills. But until next time, for another Dolphins podcast, thank you all so much for listening. And most importantly, fins up.
Fins up.
Fins up.